Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 8 of the Vuelta, España. Just under 155 kilometers, so about 95 miles in length. Kind of a short stage when you're talking about the professional peloton racing over in Europe. When we start getting races under 100 miles or under 180 kilometers, basically 160, 180. That's kind of the average in there. But if we're talking about for Grand Tours, it's not rare to go up into those 200 kilometer stages where you're 120, 125 mile length stages. So today we know it's going to be explosive because a lot of riders in the professional peloton at under 100 miles, they can pull hard 100% on today's stage. Only problem is not everybody's climbers, and there's 6 climbs on today's stage. It's going to summit with a 10 kilometer climb at about 8.5%. So we know there's going to be a GC battle regardless of what happens with the breakaway on today's stage. Now, before the race starts, it's Evenepoel doing an interview, and he says he's looking forward to this weekend of racing and getting it going because he knows it's going to be a big race starting today and tomorrow's mountain stages here at the Vuelta, España. Big question, though, when I went to bed last night is what kind of tactics are Quick-Step going to employ on today's stage, and can they control a breakaway on today's stage? Remember, this is the first time we've seen Quick-Step ride in the front having to defend a race leader's jersey at a Grand Tour in a long time because they just do not win Grand Tour races when you're talking about the Belgium team Quick-Step. They are fantastic for riding the classics, fantastic for the one-day semi-races, semi-classics, and of course, they win stages in the Grand Tours. But this is a whole nother order here to try to win with Remco Evenepoel, the young Belgium kid who has put on a phenomenal display and dominated races throughout Europe, except for at the Grand Tours. Now he's wearing the race leader's red jersey, and we know he's interested in today's stage from his interview. So when the racing starts, the action's going to be thick and heavy because right away from kilometer 0, they're going to go up a climb that's about 7 kilometers long, and it's steep, so we see all kinds of action. First rider to take off is going to be Alexei Lusenko from Astana, and he's starting the action as we see the race blowing up into pieces going up this first climb. Richard Carapaz is trying to get in these first breaks. The only problem is behind Quick-Step don't want that to happen. They're going to start bringing things back as quickly as they possibly can. Going over the top of this KOM is going to be Jay Vine from Albacete de Koenig that's taking maximum points on the KOM, and he's going to drop down the backside, and he's got UAE Team Emirates Soler following on his wheel. Now, Quick-Step has kind of brought everything back together when we come off this descent, with the exception of the 2 riders out front. And then we're going to see Mads Pedersen throw in an attack from Trek Segafredo. It didn't work out well for Trek Segafredo and Mads Pedersen on yesterday's stage 7 when they put their whole team on the front, blew everybody up, and then, of course, didn't win the stage because they didn't catch the break and lost points to Sam Bennett. Now, this is the kind of stage that I would be worried about if I'm Sam Bennett and you're racing for the points jersey because Mads Pedersen's going up the road. You might ask yourself when you're sitting on the couch watching today's race, why don't Bora Hansgrohe bring back Mads Pedersen? Well, this is the problem. I talked about this before Tour of Spain, is that Bora Hansgrohe are racing here for general classification with Jai Hindley, Wilco Kelderman, and of course they got Sergio Guida that can play for stage wins on some of these mountain summit finishes. So that's 3 guys. Their sprinter Sam Bennett's not going to make it over this climb to be able to follow the attack from Mads Pedersen. So that's why Bora Hansgrohe really can't control this attack. Mads Pedersen gets up the road with 5-6 other riders. Then we're going to see that it's going to be FDJ, Thibaut Pinot. He tried to get away earlier going up the first climb. Now he's got to go on the valley because he's missed the break up the road. He's got one teammate with him, Sebastian Rockenbach, and they got to bridge a 30-second gap up to a Mads Pedersen that's pulling 100% up there, trying to get a gap so he can get up to 25 kilometers to go and steal the sprint point bonus line classification to be able to jump over Sam Bennett in the green points jersey here for the sprint leader at the Vuelta, España. Now, FDJ, with them chasing 100%, we go back up to the front breakaway. Jay Vine, Mike Soler, they sat up and got caught by the Mads Pedersen-led group. And in that group, they had another Francaise de Jour rider up there, Bruno Armai. Armai is going to drop out of that group and go back to Thibaut Pinot and Sebastian Rockenbach. And those 3 riders are going to work for about 15 kilometers. And they're going to catch after that front group to make a front group of 10 riders up there. So we got Mads Pedersen, the Trek Segafredo rider up there, Alexei Lusenko from Astana, who started all the breakaway action from kilometer 0 almost, Mikel Landa, Bahrain Victorious, Thibaut Pinot, FDJ, Bruno Armai, FDJ, Sebastian Rockenbach, the third FDJ rider. Like I said, they all 3 bridged across together. Rain Tarme from Intermarché, Lucas Hamilton from Bike Exchange, Marc Soler from UAE Team Emirates, and Jay Vine, who's already won a stage here at the Vuelta España. Now, the biggest threat to the general classification up there is Bahrain victorious Mikel Landa at 6 minutes 33 seconds, I believe it is. And so behind, when we're talking about Quick Step, they don't have to have a big threat and worry too much about Mikel Landa at 6 minutes and 33 seconds. But they don't want to give that group too much time and allow Mikel Landa to be another threat. We just don't know at this point in time what the threat is from Mikel Landa, the Spanish rider, whether or not if you allow them back on general classification, if he can do something more spectacular in this Vuelta España. Now, we'll go back a few days ago when they went up that first summit finish that Jay Vine won in the rain and the fog. Mikel Landa had gotten dropped that day, so you can't imagine he's too spectacular. So, Quick Step, wise. They raced this start of this stage 8 spectacular in terms of tactic because it was all their climber guys going up that first climb, and now they'll put Remy Cavagna on the front. Now, he'll start driving on the front from about 120 kilometers, and Remy Cavagna will pull and hold the breakaway of 10 up there to about 4-minute gap throughout about 110 kilometers all the way to about 60 kilometers to go, where the only person I saw from Quick-Step really pulling on the front is Cavagna. So he's doing a big job here. Now remember, Remy Cavagna is not a pure climber, so he had to suffer over that first climb. And then, of course, when Quick-Step wisely enough slowed up the pace, it allowed all the peloton to come back together. So Remy Cavagna is on the front. 8 total Quick-Step riders on the front. He'll pull all the way to the left turn that starts the KOM climb, and then Remy Cavagna will pull off the front. Now, Quick-Step has got to decide what they want to do. They run Dries Devenin and Peter Siri. Fantastic tactic, and they're going to run these guys full gas to try to limit the damage of that group of 10. Up front, when we go to that breakaway, Jay Vine's been stealing KOM points left and right through all of them on this stage 8. So he's going to put himself in the KOM jersey at the end of today's stage. Now Albacete to Koenig, Jay Vine, he's got to ask himself, can I win the stage 2? Because we remember 2 stages ago, going up that crazy, rainy, stormy day, there was Jay Vine that took that stage, and he did not lose any time to anybody on that stage, so we know he's got to be the best climber in this group of 10, but there's 3 FDJ riders, so while I'm sitting on the couch, I'm wondering, is FDJ going to play any tactics, or are they just going to keep driving on the front? Now, as we near the penultimate climb, all of a sudden we look and it's FDJ still riding at the front, multiple times pulling through, no tactics being played in terms of attacks left and right. Everybody's just willing to pull Jay Vine all the way to the final climb with 10 kilometers to go to see if they can outclimb Jay Vine from Albacete to Koenig on today's stage 8 of the Vuelta España. Now there's some things happening in the peloton behind because Quick-Step's still pulling 100%. And with Peter Siri and with Dries Devenin on the front, they're bringing back about 30 seconds, 40 seconds to the group up front. With 25 kilometers to go, we come to the sprint points competition, and there's no threat here for Mads Pedersen as the group of 9 sitting on his wheel. Don't fight him at all. Mads Pedersen will pull through to take maximum points at the sprint line competition here on stage 8, and this will move him into the green jersey. Few points, 5 points, I believe, over Sam Bennett. So with that in mind, you got to believe Mads Pedersen had a successful day here for Trek Segafredo, and he'll keep working in that front group for a little bit longer to about 17 kilometers to go. Then we'll see Mads Pedersen drop out of that group. With that in mind, we're hitting the penultimate climb here, and that group's 9 strong. We're going to see Bruno Arma, FDJ. He's swinging off the back, hurting for dear life, but he'll find the energy to get back up to that front group and do a few more pulls for Thibaut Pinot, who FDJ are hoping can win today's stage 8 of the Vuelta España. Now behind, it's Quick-Step still pulling as hard as they can. They're going to get a little bit of help, though, now with about 15 kilometers to go from Movistar. Movistar get on the front. They're trying to do damage control, too, because they're worried about Mikel Landa up front. I don't like this tactic at all. Movistar, I don't see any reason why you should do it. Remco Evenepoel clearly shows he's on good form. Quick-Step has done a fabulous job of keeping the team all together throughout today's stage and rode it tactically brilliant, but Movistar love riding on the front. With that in mind, Movistar is bringing down a little bit more time, but not doing too much damage control to the group of 9 up front. Now, when we go into the final climb with 10 kilometers to go, guys, this is a monster climb at over 8.5% in sections at 19%. Pitches here on this final climb up to the summit finish of stage 8 of the Vuelta España. The group of 9, they're hitting this climb. They're still working well together going up the climb, First rider to attack, just about 7 kilometers to go. It's going to be Alexei Lusenko from Astana. He throws in an attack, and with that, all of a sudden, we see it's Marc Soler, UAE Team Emirates, coming off the back. And if we look at the picture, just slightly in front of him, it's Mikel Landa. Mikel Landa at 6 minutes, 33 seconds on the general classification. He was the big threat, but he doesn't have any climbing legs as he's getting dropped off the back. Now the camera goes back up front. Guess what? It's Jay Vine, Albacete de Koenig on the front. He's got 2 riders on his wheel in the form of Thibaut Pinot from FDJ, who did a great job of bridging the gap to get up into this group. Now with Thibaut Pinot holding on to Jay Vine's wheel, there's a 3rd rider back there, and it's Rain Tarame from Intermarché. Rain Tarame is doing everything he can to hold on. Jay Vine does one more acceleration. Not really attack, just keeping the pace hard. And all of a sudden, we see Thibaut Pinot and Rain Tarame come off the back. Behind in the peloton when they start in the descent just before the climb started, it was Ineos getting on the front. Ineos going full gas. Now this is a great tactic. Didn't like Movistar pulling on the front because they were actually trying to bring the gap down to the breakaway riders. Right now, Ineos are just trying to go down this descent to stay at the front, start the next and final climb here of the Vuelta a España at the front. They do that. They keep all their guys at the front. Then all of a sudden it fans up with 10 kilometers to go. Julian Alaphilippe get on the front. Now, at this point in time, Quick Step look fantastic. They got 4 riders left in the race. Julian Alaphilippe is there, Vervaeke is there, Van Wilder is there, and of course, race leaders, red jersey, Remco Evenepoel. Julian Alaphilippe will take over the front, and he'll start setting a heavy tempo up there. Now we start seeing some damage at the back of the peloton as guys start thinning out and coming off the back. Up front, it's still Jay Vine. He's going solo. Marc Soler has found his way back up to the 2 riders in front of him, talking about Rain Tarame and Thibaut Pinot. Now we'll see Jay Vine as he's flying down the slight little descent here. He blazes right past the building there, cuts it on a thin line. Then there's a hard bump right after there. Jay Vine doesn't even break stride. We see him pop out of the saddle, smooth on the pedals, powers over this next little bit. Then we see the group behind as now it's 3 riders chasing Jay Vine at about 25 seconds. Thibaut Pinot, Rain Tarame, and of course Marc Soler, who somehow has just found his way back on, but he's losing a little bit of gap as they're coming down the descent and shooting that turn between the building and the climb starting straight back up. Marc Soler will get himself back on. And now let's go back to the peloton because we're going to start to see some action. As it's Julian Alaphilippe that comes off the front. Now, all of a sudden, with his job done, it's the next quick-step rider taking his pull. It's Vervaeke that's on the front, and Vervaeke's doing a great job thinning the peloton out even more. He'll keep pulling hard, and then next rider to take over for quick-step is going to be Van Wilder. When Van Wilder takes over, he brings this group down to about 20, maybe just under 20 riders of the size of the GC favorites back there as everyone's starting to suffer who can't climb here at the Vuelta a España. Back up front, Marc Soler's going solo. He dropped Thibaut Pinot and Rain Tarame, and he's trying to bring back the solo rider Jay Vine from Albacete de Koenig. We go back to the GC favorites with about 3.5 kilometers to go. Theo Gegenhardt from Ineos is the first rider of the GC threat to throw an attack against Remco Evenepoel. With that attack, we start seeing some of the favorites come out the back because Richard Carapaz Ineos is coming out the back, and it's Almeida UAE Team Emirates. He went solid at the Giro d'Italia all the way to the last week before he had to leave with a COVID positive, but now here at the Vuelta a España, he still doesn't have any legs back from that Giro d'Italia form as he's getting dropped coming out the back. We'll see Van Wilder pull over to the right side of the road. He's done everything he can, so that means that Remco Evenepoel is on his own trying to follow Theo Gegenhardt's attack. Now the cameras go blank. Sorry guys, it's bad weather at the top and they lose the cameras all the way to 1.8 kilometers to go when the cameras finally come back on and it's Jay Vine still solo. We'll see Marc Soler, he's still putting in a big effort. He's got Jay Vine at about 25-second gap, so we know with 1.5 kilometers to go, there's still a chance for UAE Team Emirates to win today's stage with Marc Soler. Now, the only problem is Jay Vine's up front, and he knows that he needs to put a little more acceleration to the pedal, so he does. And with 1 kilometer to go, we see the gap bump back up to 27 seconds, and then 100 meters after that, the gap gets almost up to 30 seconds. At this point in time of the race, we know Jay Vine, Albacete de Koenig, he's going to win today's stage to get 2 stage wins here at the Vuelta a España. He'll do one more look over his shoulder with about a few hundred meters to go at today's race, and then his hand goes to his head as it drips down because the man is ready to celebrate. He'll cross the line solo on today's stage to take a big win for the Australian. and for Team Alpecin de Koenig. Now coming across the line second, Marc Soler. He tried to close that gap, but he couldn't. He'll lose about 40 seconds when he crosses the line, but he will hold off a hard charge in Rein Tarame from Intermarché to round out the podium on today's stage. Thibaut Pinot finished fourth. Now let's go back to the GC favorites because we know the cameras are working. And we look back, it's Remco Evenepoel that's on the front. Theo Gegenhardt, who was on the front when the cameras went blank, he's no longer in the picture because there's only 4 riders there. Remco Evenepoel, Mas is there. Primoz Roglic, Jumbo-Visma is locked onto the wheel, but he doesn't look like the Primoz Roglic of old. And then the 4th place rider, Carlos Rodriguez, is there for Ineos. 5th place rider, that if you want to call is there, is Simon Yates, but he's just a little bit gapped off, and shortly, a few hundred meters later, Simon Yates will be further gapped off as he's going to start losing time to the group just up in front of him, battling for the GC favorites. Now, as we come into the final meters, Remco Evenepoel still setting tempo at the front, but he's dropped Carlos Rodriguez. There's only 2 riders on his wheel. Primoz Roglic is there, but still not looking like the Primoz Roglic of old. Mas is still there in 2nd place, and then all of a sudden, as we come up with about a couple hundred meters to go, Mas throws in a big acceleration to try to get some time against Remco Evenepoel, but guess what? The Belgian rider's not going to put up with it. He'll pull up even alongside Mas, and then he'll take the front again to cross the line for 4th on the stage, about 1 minute 20 seconds behind Jay Vine, but he's got Mas on his wheel. Primoz Roglic holding on for 3 of the GC favorites crossing the line together. We go further back. It's Simon Yates and Carlos Rodriguez about 13 seconds behind the Remco Evenepoel group with Mas and Primoz Roglic. Now, when I dissect today's stage, it was a crazy stage. Quick Step raced fantastic. They were perfect with all their tactics throughout the stage. But when we look further back and we start thinking about Jumbo-Visma, it's a strange stage looking at Jumbo-Visma because Primoz Roglic couldn't put in an attack, which means that his form from 2 days ago where he lost time to Remco Evenepoel could be that it could be possibly a smidge better than that race two days ago. But when we're talking about Remco Evenepoel, you can be sure Remco Evenepoel, while he was pulling on the front with Primoz Roglic and Mas on his wheel, along with Carlos Rodriguez and Adam Yates there, you know he's going to be holding something a little bit back, and that's why you saw at the finish of that stage where he had that big acceleration to still come back around Mas from Movistar and be able to take 4th place on the stage ahead of all the GC favorites. Looking forward, though, you got to ask yourself, Jumbo-Visma, what's the problem? Every time we looked at the group, when we're talking about 20 guys, 30 guys strong, they were losing guys out of that group. I saw Sam Omen coming out the back. Sepp Kuss wasn't anywhere near on the general classification at the end of today's stage to help Primoz Roglic off. And then, of course, Chris Harper wasn't there in the final selection. He held on the longest of all the other GC guys when we're talking about from Jumbo-Visma. But he still wasn't up there to be able to help Primoz Roglic. So Jumbo-Visma, who were the first time where I saw throughout today's stage where they were never really on the front and they weren't being real dominant like we're used to seeing for Jumbo-Visma. They're going to have a tall order to be able to come back and beat a Remco Evenepoel. But all you need is Primoz Roglic's top form to come back, and then we're going to see this big battle, big attacks between the 2 big giants here, Remco Evenepoel, Primoz Roglic, and I'm going to throw in Mas in there because he looks fantastic on today's stage. Tomorrow's race, another big one, another day in the mountains, so another day to tune in here to the Butterfly Effect. Hope you guys enjoyed and appreciated today's stage. I know I did, sitting on the couch watching every bit of it. It was fantastic racing from start to finish of today's stage. Jay Vine put on a fantastic show. The winner of the Swift World Championships has found himself up into the big boy ranks here at the Vuelta a España, winning not 1 but 2 stages of the Vuelta a España and mountain stages on top of that, dropping everybody finishing solo on both days. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next edition of the Butterfly Effect.